Power is about the extent to which you leave people alone or don't leave people alone. Power is about whether you get to make decisions or you don't get to make decisions, and under what circumstances you get to make decisions. The genius of the framers of the Constitution is Philadelphia is they sat down and they said, we need a national government because we can't raise finances. We're going to be open to being attacked. We can't defend our ships at sea. We are either the United States of America or we're not. How are we going to do this? And for 5.5 months, that's what they duked out. And what did they say? 3 branches of government. There is no liberty without rights. And there are no rights without power. That's why in this book I quote the 1936 Stalin Constitution. It is fabulous. He steals from the Bill of Rights. He steals from the great documents that free societies mostly have written. The Magna Carta he steals from. It's unbelievable. But when you really read it, only one man has power. Power. That means nothing. Right after that Constitution came out, he starved to death 6 to 7 million Ukrainians. It meant nothing because he retained the power. So he can talk about liberty, and he did. He can talk about rights, and he did. He can talk about free speech. He said he believed in all these things. He talked about all these things. But he had absolute power. And so to me, the issue isn't about negative or positive liberty. The issue is the application of power. So I look at the Declaration of Independence, and I look at the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment came first, but the Judeo-Christian belief system came long before the Enlightenment. Your Declaration of Independence was founded on the Judeo-Christian value and belief system. Whether people are Jewish or Christian is beside the point. That's how the nation was founded, so anybody who comes here is free to exercise their faith, is free to speak, is free to do so many things in an ordered society. That's your declaration. God has sovereign. That's where it starts. We, the people, his children on earth, we are sovereign as individuals and as a group. We don't bow to rulers. We don't bow to a ruling class. We don't bow to a relative handful of other human beings who claim they have sovereignty over us. No, 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 no. That's Marxism. That's Islamism. That's fascism. That's them. That's not Americanism. And then they solved the problem of power. How? They addressed it how? They went to the Enlightenment. What did John Locke say? You got to control power, the civil society. He didn't get into the specifics of it, but he did talk about you can't have one person or one group with power. Well, why? Because they lived it, and they studied it, and they knew it, and he wrote about it. That's why John Locke was the most important philosopher during the Revolutionary period. Then Montesquieu writes this book like this, The Spirit of the Laws. He's talking about the laws. The laws. Why? Because the laws are a reflection of power. And what does he say? Why is he quoted multiple times in the Federalist Papers? In the Federalist Papers to try and convince the states to ratify the Constitution. The key thing that Montesquieu said that they embraced at the Constitutional Convention was power needs to check power. Aristotle said it, Cicero said it, others said it, but Montesquieu broke it down into 3 branches of government: the judicial, the executive, the legislative. As I quote him in the first chapter of the book, which is just called On Power, and what does he say? If one branch devours the other, you have tyranny. If one branch devours the other too, you have tyranny. Why? Why does any of this matter? So rather than going back to the American founding, Mill is there trying to figure out what's going on, and he does a fantastic job, but he doesn't get there. Isaiah Berlin does a fantastic job of trying to define liberty, but he never gets there. You go to your founding, you go to the Declaration. The founders got there. You don't have to explicitly define what liberty is. Power is about the extent to which you leave people alone or don't leave people alone. Power is about whether you get to make decisions or you don't get to make decisions, and under what circumstances you get to make decisions. The genius of the framers of the Constitution is Philadelphia is they sat down and they said, we need a national government because we can't raise finances. We're going to be open to being attacked. We can't defend our ships at sea. We are either the United States of America or we're not. But on the other hand, they said, look at all this. We've read Aristotle, we read Cicero, we have our Declaration. Many of us were involved in the Declaration. How are we going to do this? And for 5.5 months, that's what they duked it out in Philadelphia. And what did they say? 3 branches of government. What else did they say? Let's try and define with some level of specificity what they're supposed to do. What else did they say? Well, they debated over whether there should be what we now call a Bill of Rights. Many of the delegates said no. Madison said no. Why? Because they didn't want rights? No, because he said, what if we leave something out? We make a list of these are the Bill of Rights. How many are there? There may be 1,000 of them. So they decided no Bill of Rights, except when the Constitution went to the state ratification conventions, they raised a lot of concerns. Some of them said, there's no gun rights in here. Some of them said, there's no religious rights in here. Some of them said, what about these general warrants in Britain? Can't the federal government have general warrants? We got to have a warrant provision in here. We got to have probable cause. We have to have all these things. And so they were promised by Hamilton, Madison, and the others, please, let's adopt this Constitution. And the first Congress will deal with these other issues. So they adopted the Constitution. It wasn't easy. New York was against it originally. Hamilton was from New York. That's why they wrote the Federalist Papers. Virginia was hostile. That's why Madison was involved in the Federalist Papers. Those were the 2 big states, that Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. Pennsylvania was okay. Massachusetts was teetering a little bit, but it seemed to be going. So they wrote the Federalist Papers to persuade these states to go along. It was a very close vote in some of these states. Very close vote. They needed 9 of the 13 states. And they got them. By the way, the last of the 13 was Rhode Island, just out of interest. The first was Delaware, 2 of the smallest. So when you look at your Constitution, it's a genius document. And they eventually did adopt what we call the Bill of Rights. What's interesting about that is Madison, who was elected to the House of Representatives from Virginia, he defeated somebody named James Monroe, who would become president later. What happened was Madison's there in the House of Representatives and the first Congress, and they're chugging along, and he says, hey, fellas, we made a promise to these states. We got to take a look at the complaints that they brought in to amend our Constitution. He said, I recommend a committee of the whole House of Representatives. And the whole House of Representatives said, that seems a little ungangly, undoable, unmanageable. So they set up a committee that Madison headed, and they came up with 16. They sent them to the Senate. The Senate reduced it to 12. The House then adopted the 12. Supermajorities of both houses. They sent them to the states. The states adopted 10 of them. Those 10 are your Bill of Rights.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.